guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to take you through a quick training recap from this past week, as well as discuss a pretty big change that I made to my bench frequency. So I have been a 3-time-a-week bencher for as long as I can remember, and it wasn't until this week that the thought of adding a fourth day ever even popped into my mind. As I discussed in my last video, I'm currently running Steve DeNovi's 15-week program that he released recently, just with the addition of some overload work on my bench days. So for this third block, I knew I wanted to change out the Spoto press as I had been doing for the slingshot. And the way I had been using the Spoto press was on the secondary bench day. I took the volume that was written into the program and just replaced it with Spotos. For the slingshot, I knew I wanted to go a little bit heavier. It's more of like a 5x2. And as I kind of looked at everything, I figured I would just skip the back downs. But the more I looked at the week, I figured I could take that volume work and just throw it after my bench, giving myself a 4-day week split. And now that I've completed 1 week of this format, I don't feel like adding the fourth day impacted my recovery when it came to my primary bench day. And if anything, it just gave me extra exposure at a low percent to just continue to dial in my setup. Now, obviously this is only week 1 of this experiment, so I'm curious to see how it plays out as the weight progresses and if it can possibly boost me to a PR at the end of the block. It'll also help me decide how I want to structure everything when I get back on meet prep here at the beginning of the year. So getting into the training recap of week 1 of block 3, I'm just going to go day by day focusing on the main lifts, and you'll get an idea of how everything is laid out. So Sunday is day 1 for me, and it's an SBD day, with squats being the primary squat day, bench is actually the tertiary day, and then deadlift is the secondary day. So you can see this is a little bit different than how I had done in the past, where I had all of my heavy lifts throughout the weekend, where I would do 2 on Saturday and then 1 on Sunday. So for squats was a single and a triple, and the weights you get for those is what calculates the back downs. I topped out at 240 for my single, which actually was on the low end of the range prescribed for the RPE. And for the triple, I ended at 220 for 3, which is the mid-upper end of the prescribed range. And both of those, just nothing was feeling right. And it wasn't until I started doing the back downs after that that I realized what the issue was. Previously, before we got the rest of our floor in, we had an extra piece of mat that was just kind of thrown under the squat rack. And that's what I was used to squatting on, and it was just a plain piece. Well, now that that's gone, there's a split down the middle of the squat rack, which isn't a big deal, but I found myself really straddling it, and I like a more narrow stance. My back downs were 200 for 2 sets of 3, and then 180 for 2 sets of 5. But it wasn't until I got to that 200 that I realized how far out my feet were. As soon as I brought them in, everything felt better. I kind of wanted to go like start the whole thing again and see if it felt better with my single, but I obviously didn't. I just finished out the set. So from there we move on to the bench, and in the program is just Larson's for 3 sets of 6. And this is where I add the board press. I do the board press first and kind of use the Larson's as back downs. So for the last 2 blocks, I did a block of triples, a block of doubles, and now we're into a block of singles. My best 2-board single was 205. And just based on how everything was feeling, I thought I might end at either a tied PR or possibly even above just on week 1. So 185 flew. I got my husband to come out here and give me a lift off for my following sets, and 195 might as well have been 135. You can see I kind of like leap off the bench. I was so excited. So we went straight to 205. Normally I would have probably taken like a 5-pound to go 200, 205. But I've been trying to get better about taking bigger jumps. So we went straight to 205, and I had noticed that when I set up my arch, I always bump the block, which kind of leaves it at an angle. And so I said to him, before you hand it off, can you straighten out the board? I just want to see if that feels better. Well, let me tell you, your top set's not when you should be making any changes, because it felt super strange, and as you can see, I failed it. But I wasn't about to give up, so I told him this time, don't touch it, just leave it where it is. And although it was a complete struggle bus, I got it, and obviously ended this block on a tied PR, which was pretty cool. The best part is my youngest son came out here between us that I failed him before I went to do it again. And I was like, buddy, I really need your help. I just missed this lift. I'm gonna get it. And so he sat off to the side, and you can't really hear him in the video, but he's like, you passed that one, Mom. So it's always fun when they're out here to cheer you on. But I feel like if I hadn't wasted so much energy on that fail, that the 205 might have gone a little bit smoother. I don't know if I would have had more, but we'll find out as the weeks progress. I don't have any videos of the Larson, but they were 110, 115, and 120 for sets of 6. So the final movement of this SBD day is the cluster deadlifts, which I mentioned in the last video are probably my favorite thing about the Steve Denobi program. So it's just 235 for 5 sets of 1 with a 45-second rest, and then you take as long of a break as you want and repeat it again. And this week the weight was 220. So again, just lots of practice with dialing in that setup. Monday is my rest day. Tuesday is the secondary bench day. So it's a top double and the back downs are sets of 4. This is also the day where I added in the slingshot and the day that I decided to move to a 4-day-a-week bench split. So I ended with 150 for a pretty smooth double, and then from here I added the slingshot. I had mentioned earlier that I was going for 5 sets of 2. So I did 160, 170, 180, 190, and then 190 was feeling good, so I just did that again. So I did 2 sets at 190, and it just felt super foreign. Setting up with the slingshot's kind of awkward because I can't set up my normal way. So I'm hoping after a few weeks it won't feel as awkward. So after that, I did the 135 for 4, and following that would have been 125 for 3 sets of 4. Now this Tuesday day is probably the longest training day of all of the 5-day split. And I still had my accessories to do. And as you can see, I come out here in the morning, so I'm kind of on a time crunch, and I really wanted to get to my accessories. So I'm like, well, we're just gonna skip these back downs. And that's what I did. And it wasn't until later in the day when I was looking ahead at the next day of squats, I like to always look at the range and just kind of get my mind ready for what's coming up, that I realized that, hey, this squat day is my shortest day of training, so why don't I just add this bench volume over here and see how having a 4-day bench split goes, as I used to always squat. I would squat and bench together 2 times a week. So we roll around to the next day. This is the secondary squat day, which for this day is a top double, a back down double, and then high bar pause for 2 sets of 5. The 2x5 is written as a comp squat in the program, but if you watch Steve's video where he kind of does an overview, he mentions that you can use high bar, just knowing that the percentages might be a little off. And I really feel like high bar has carried over to my low bar, so I've been incorporating it for over a year now. So I ended with 230 for 2, which felt awesome, having my stance right where I wanted it. The back down set was 205 for a set of 2, and then 175 for 2 sets of 5 high bar pause. After this is when I moved into that bench volume work, so I just worked up to the 125 for 3 sets of 4. And they went better than they probably would have if I had kept them on the bench day after everything else I had done. And so it was kind of a little bit of a confidence boost going into my primary day 2 days later. So moving into Thursday is the primary deadlift day, which is a top single followed by a triple, the back off work, and then the pause. I forgot to mention, every session other than that primary squat day, I have reached the top end range for what's prescribed for the RPE. So I was kind of bummed that this deadlift day fell on the coldest day of the week. It was about 28 degrees out here. And it's not so much like you being cold that's the issue. It's just that your hands hurt so bad from handling the cold bar and the cold plate. We do have a little space heater in here, but it barely does nothing. I just kind of go hover my hands over it to keep them warm in between sets. So I worked up to a nice single at 305, and then my triple was 275. That was followed by 250 for 3, and then the pause work was 215 for 2 sets of 5. And for probably the first 2, at least sometimes 3 weeks of each block, I've been doing the pause work beltless, and then only adding the belt probably the last week when the weight really picks up. So this brings us to the last training day of the week for me, which is Friday, and that's the primary bench day. Follows the same format as deadlift, top single and triple, and then that calculates the back down work. The range for this day for my single was 150 to 160. I did 160 and it felt amazing. So I decided to bump up a little bit and I did 165. So you can see it definitely was an overshoot of the RPE for the day, but I will say that 165 is starting to get more consistent, and I'm starting to get less in my head about numbers that are over 160. So I'm not mad that I pushed the RPE that day. For the triple, I went with 155. The range for that was 140 to 150. And this was the right call because the 155, I felt like I could have done 5 more. So the back downs were a set of 3 at 145 and then a 3x3 at 135. And that wrapped up a great week 1. Saturday today is a rest day for me. And then we'll be getting into week 2 tomorrow. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stick around for more content from a garage gym, powerlifting mom, showing you that you don't have to be the strongest to be strong. Thanks, bye.